Okay, welcome to Into the Channel podcast, primarily about women's football. I am your host, Dino DeCespedes, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Mr. Grant Engel. What is up, man?
I'm feeling pretty fantastic, buddy. Dare I say, I think all four of those football matches lived up to their billing and then some.
Yeah, I enjoyed three of them.
Sure.
The fourth one, we'll talk about it, but I mean, we were talking about this a little bit pre-show. A big jump from last year's quarterfinals where I think the opening round was a dud. We kind of knew even after that first leg who was going to get through. It was going to be straight chalk. But now this year, definitely a lot more intrigue. Very, very excited. Where do you want to get started?
Before we do that, though, the SK Braun match in the quarterfinals was an absolute banger, but I think that was the only one of the four, if I remember correctly. I mean, I'm sure somebody will correct us if we're wrong.
That's fair. Good point.
And we'll talk more about Braun later because, as everybody knows, this is an SK Braun podcast.
That's right.
So where do I want to get started? To the football, my good man. We got to crack these frosty beverages.
Oh, baby. That we do.
Beak. That was some excellent football.
Cheers. Cheers
Sounds
to the
good.
excellent football.
Cheers to you. Delicious.
Cheers to doing it live as well. This is turning over a new leaf. Very exciting. And I'm ready to get into it.
I like it. So, oh boy, I got to chill. Okay, this beer is freezing. Let me, hold on a second. It's cold in here. Jesus. Okay, where do I want to get
Close
started?
the window
Okay.
over there.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, it's a little chilly in Seattle, 44 degrees. Not terrible, but I think this beer is making me cold. Okay, so let's see here. All right. Manchester. It's really cold. Hold on a second.
For our audio audience, for those not joining live, first of all, what are you doing? Because we have a great time here live, even though this is only our fourth or fifth. But for the audio audience, Grant just slid on a couple Manchester City scarves. Mm-hmm. And he's layering. He's got layers, and he looks nice and toasty over there.
I appreciate that. Yes, first scarf, obviously, member of the club. Got to have that scarf. This darker blue one, straight from the Etihad from my trip there last year.
Let's go.
Okay, all right. Well, where shall we get started? Is the score even right in the doc? Hold on, let me get my reading glasses on here. Okay. Manchester City. Manchester City Football Club 2. Chelsea Football Club 0?
That happened.
It definitely happened. Look, City played with incredible confidence for a team missing its leading scorer and its living legend attacker, Viv Miedema, starting on the bench. And it just felt like, in the first half and then especially in the second half, they just forced Chelsea into an aimless attack that was never really able to maximize any real chances. At least that's how it felt from my perspective. Where did you land on it?
I mean, I thought the same. It's funny because, I mean, I love to compare, women's football to the fight sports. And this reminded me a lot of, when you have a seasoned champion, and then you have a young, maybe it's like a southpaw coming in, and all of a sudden it starts early, and then like the young, unproven, fighter is like making progress. And then you're just like, okay, you just sit and wait for the champion to kind of get it together. It just never happens. I mean, it happens kind of all the time. It's like sort of one of the tropes of the fight sports. This struck me as exactly that. We talked about City kind of like taking a stand here. You lose the League Cup, you're heading into the first leg of the Champions League. Like it's like you sort of like clear the deck, but also what just happened is still fresh in everybody's mind as well. It is tough to beat a good team twice, but just, I went back and looked at this because I'm like, what went wrong for what went wrong for Chelsea? Because they had no bite to their attack. So check this out. LJ, just 28 touches in 58 minutes. That seems weird. Myra, 24 touches in 72 minutes. That's like one touch every 3 minutes. That's rough too. And then who else am I looking at here? Kat Macario, 20 touches in 45 minutes. And I think ABJ in 90 minutes had 60 touches almost more than all three of them combined. So it was clear that City's was shading defense, towards those, kind of like we'll just call them big three: LJ, Myra, and Kat Macario. And Chelsea didn't really have an adjustment to the adjustment from there.
You think about the She Believes Cup final. Yui Hasegawa 2, Kat Macario 0. If we're thinking about this, I mean, well, I guess you have the League Cup, but I mean, this is another big spot where Hasegawa played absolutely out of her mind. I mean, her pedigree, her resume is unimpeachable anyway, but she just comes up huge every single time. I'm glad you pointed out the lack of touches for Macario. There were stretches where she was just like pretty much invisible on the pitch. She was like a non-factor.
Yep.
LJ had a really nice cross into Ramirez, I think, at one point in the first half, but it got sent wide. There was good defense on Macario, did not really let her square up to it. At least, I think it might have been to Ramirez, if I have my notes right. But I just think even with Chelsea having most of the ball, and City had a little more of the ball in the first half, but then Chelsea was really dominating possession in the second half.
Yep.
City was able to just have those moments, and I'm going to start with the first half, where Lily Murphy, she didn't have a super high foot mob rating, but it felt like when she was making runs and just trying to push the pace when City did have the ball, it was really effective. And, I'm sure we're going to talk more about Ghetto Lynn, but this was by far her best match in the City Sky Blues. I mean, she was pinning back. She was enough of a threat. Her and Jill Roord, Murphy and Park, they were just pinning back Bronze and Baltimore and kind of neutralizing those wing threats that Chelsea is usually able to bury teams with.
Yeah, absolutely. And I thought, when I saw the lineup going into this one, you look at Fowler, you look at Murphy, you look at Caroline, and you're just like, okay, I mean, this is an interesting. We've never seen this lineup for sure. Definitely in a match like this. But one thing that lineup did afford City was like great movement, great unpredictability. Those are three players that can go in any direction, change direction, go fast, go slow, change speed, and just kind of keep you on your heels. And that's exactly what they did. And then Caroline did it to a very, very high degree in this match. You must have been pumped to see that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there were times, I mean, she absolutely cooked Millie Bright a couple times, at least once. I mean, that Baltimore was really struggling with the Brazilian. I just thought, Gedeline was absolutely fantastic. Fowler, she blew a chance like somewhere around the half hour mark where she kind of she like passed the ball like a little too wide and like didn't give her teammate the opportunity to kind of make something of it. But even when Chelsea would give up the ball with most of the possession, the Joy Stadium crowd would get into it just when City would push the ball up, even if they were just pushing it like 30, 40 yards and just kind of creating that space. It was just like the crowd was adding to Chelsea's frustration that they just couldn't really put anything together, even with all that time on the ball.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm not sure if it was Carlo, if it was Blue last week in the chat, and shout out to Sadak for joining us. Welcome to the party. Mm-hmm. Watching, sort of like, as many, like I think Carlo, I'm not sure if it was Carlo or Blue, as I was mentioning, talked about Sandy Baltimore maybe being not the right choice at left back because, that's our natural position. That's not where we saw her in France last year. And I think this was just the match where it's like, okay, we saw the limits of Sandy Baltimore at left back and what that would mean against a player like Caroline, obviously former NWSL VP, a tall task. A lot of people are going to struggle in that. And then I think, Baltimore specifically on this day, had a really, really hard time. But I mean, it wasn't just that, you can't, it's tough to kind of point to one matchup because, I had thought a lot about that City back line. Obviously they had the Greenwood injury. That was tough. We've seen Alexandri struggle. We've seen Wahhabi struggle. But I think those two players plus Kasparai on the other side, Yu Hasegawa, you mentioned Yamashita, unbelievable in this match.
Awesome.
6 up, 6 down, saved everything, was just, locked in every single second. But I thought City's back line played really great, really decisive. Decisive in the sense of like, there's danger. I'm not even going to think. I'm just going to attack it. And there was no like sort of like I'm caught in between like the pass and the drive, and I'm not really sure. Everything was like deliberate. Everything was fast, and it was a little faster than I think Chelsea was comfortable with.
Definitely seemed that way. And I thought Gracie Pryor, the 20-year-old in a Champions League quarterfinal, she just went out there and just played real physical. And I love that you used the term decisive. I thought they were all definitely decisive in terms of just like, you know what, I'm just going to kick this one out of play to the side, or, I'm going to lower my shoulder. And if it's a foul, it's a foul. I think that there was a great team defense, and Sadak has it right in the comments. Chelsea needed to be more clinical, but I think they were just getting pushed out of their comfort zone, and that may have affected what their touches looked like.
Yeah, I want to get to two of your predictions, but one in particular that I'm going to go to here. If you give me a second here to fire this thing up,
I am going to take, because that fluky goal off of Hasegawa, I'm going to take Manchester City Football Club 2, Chelsea 1. And it's going. Do I feel great about it? No, but I picked them to get through in the preview episode. So Carlo, don't yell at me. But and I'll say City wins 2-1 at home, and it's a Miedema game. Miedema comes out and is an absolute force. Okay, so let me just apologize for my terrible prediction. First of all, it wasn't 2-1; it was 2-0. And secondly, which I feel even worse about, I was dead wrong. It wasn't a Miedema game. It was a Miedema half. 45 minutes was all she needed to come out there. And I had in my notes, because I really liked the way Murphy played in the first half. And I was just like, okay, here's what my notes say. Surprised to see Murphy exit the match after playing so well, but we're bringing on Viv Miedema, so that's probably just fine. And, the next thing I have is I wonder if the plan was for Murphy to just give the best 45 she's ever played and then bring on the legend. And it would turn out that Nick Cushing, good plan, buddy. That worked.
Crushed it. I think he totally crushed it. The thing with Miedema, and again, I think Murphy's going to be she's already really good. I think you can see that the experience isn't there, but that's a player that's got a massive future. But the thing about Miedema is like, it's such a luxury to be able to bring on a player that at some point in their career, or maybe at many points in their career, many days that they spent playing football, they were the best player in the world. Like on that day, like they just were like, I'm just the top dog, and it's like Miedema's not necessarily at that stage in her career necessarily every second, every day anymore, but players like that know how to summon kind of like moments and like kind of dig deep, and they've kind of seen everything, and like, you're not really going to kind of get them frazzled. That was such a cool moment to see a player like that just not even really turn back the clock, just be like, I know exactly what to do here, and I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it twice, and I'm going to bury this team and make sure that we head to Stamford Bridge, in a really strong position.
Yeah, man. I mean, on the other side of those devastating injuries, everybody knows the book on Miedema. I want to try to recite this from memory. I think it's pretty basic, though. Wins the Euros with the Netherlands, second place finisher in the 2019 World Cup, all-time leading scorer in the history of the WSL. She's now on the other side of these devastating injuries. As he said, she's still only 28. So, is there still a little more like recovery from those injuries to kind of like come back and really cement as like, hey, I'm back. I'm like the 8th best player in the world at worst, or something like that. I don't know. It's hard to say. You never know. I think there are times where, she doesn't move like she did in the 2019 World Cup, obviously. But
I think she doesn't move the way she did for sure. but I like where she's playing like closer to the center of the park because it allows you to utilize her vision, and she's still happy to like drive the ball upfield. And she's so smart, so it's like, you're not necessarily, even if she's like sort of like a little deeper, you're not taking her out of the mix offensively. You're just giving her more options. And I think just the fact that like, City can move the ball forward on the heels of a lot of different players. I think that's kind of a sneaky, like an interesting way to probably extract more value from what Meadham was able to do.
I think that's fair. I mean, one of the things that I felt like was really obvious is she came onto the field and it like changed the entire geometry of the way the game was being played. Again, even with City not having much of the ball, I think they had like 34% of the ball, 37%, pardon me, 37% of the ball in the second half, but they still had more shots, 9-8. They were equal in shots on target, 5-5. And then they had those two big chances. And it's because it's Viv Miedema, she fucking buries both of them. And, I want to point out too, and kind of from the Chelsea perspective here is, we talked about Sjoeke Nuskin on the preview episode. And I would say that on any given day, Nuskin is a very good to excellent player in pretty much all the matches that we watch. There's got to be something weird when you bring that player on at the 59th minute. So it was Nuskin and Ritin Kanerud on for Kira Walsh and LJ in the 59th minute. Mm-hmm. And when you bring those two players on, and Nuskin just didn't have a good game. Like the half hour plus that she played, it might have been one of the lesser performances I think I've ever seen out of Nuskin. She got shook real bad by Fowler to set up the first Miedema goal, and then she was just having a rough go of it. There's got to be something mentally where you're like, oh damn, I thought that sub was going to work, and it's clearly not working.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking here because I was checking pre-show, and Nuskin. Let's see. Yeah, so Nuskin, she attempted 14 passes and connected on just 8 of them in 31 minutes. And she definitely was off. And I think, probably not used to, coming off the bench in a game like this. And like, I don't know, like these like really tough time crunch schedules, like really make it super difficult to chemistry is going to be like a really big deal. And I think, we'll get to Barca here in a second, but Barca kind of zagged the other way, and we'll get to Arsenal even later, in the show where you can tell some of these managers are like, all right, well, let's try to keep things a little bit fresh. Some managers are like, let's make sure the chemistry, like we've got like little pockets and triangles that are going to work in this one. But yeah, I mean, it's something to definitely, it's tough to do. Like I think that's probably like one of the sneaky hardest things a manager has to do in a tournament like this is like, you have so many good players. Chelsea has a ton of good players. Barcelona has a ton of good players. How do you build a lineup to counteract what the other team might do, who they might play? A player like Caroline, like we haven't seen her before. We talked about her in the preview. And I think like that's a perfect example of, just where you can just step in it as a manager. And I think on this day, Bon Pastor kind of wasn't able to make it happen. And I think no adjustments came. The subs didn't work. I'll be interested to see kind of like how they come back necessarily, because it does feel like, and you talked about this after the League Cup, that you thought City played better. And I think a lot of people saw what you saw, what we saw. In this match, it was very apparent. City was the better team on this day. JRK comes in. She's got like a couple of good looks, hits the post on one. But outside of that, it's like, City was outshot. Even though they had more possession and had more passes, they had less shots on target than City. So Chelsea, I don't know if they're going to, well, I'm dying to see what kind of adjustments we've got coming around the corner here.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll say some of those adjustments had your boy nervous at times. I mean, you predicted a 1-1 draw, and I think your prediction obviously wasn't far off. When Canerud smashed the crossbar It was like off a 2-pass sequence that took them from midfield inside the 18 in like 3 seconds. That was a little terrifying. And this is coming directly from my notes after they brought on Micah Hamano. And this is obviously from the Manchester City fan perspective. I wrote, and I quote, "I fucking hate it every time Hamano is on the ball." And I wrote that in the 83rd minute because I was just terrified that she was going to do something. And I thought there was one thing that was funny too. When Hamano comes on the pitch, she comes in for Ramirez in the 72nd minute, and Hamano just had a giant smile on her face. Like, oh, I get to go play football with my friends now. And I was just like, oh God, she's going to kill us. There's something terrible is going to happen here. You know me, I could be filled with the existential dread from time to time. But I mean, I think it goes back to, the energy was great. The plan was good. You bring on Miedema in the second half. And, our pal, I'm going to go with Kikels. Says in the chat that City prioritized this game over anything else and wanted it more, and they have Viv Miedema. That's an excellent point. Our pal P is here, pointing out that we said it needed to be a Viv game, coming off the bench. And, I just think that City looked great. They looked cohesive. They looked like they had a plan, and it worked. I mean, and now you get that second one near the death at like the 89th minute. And, I'm going to do some real basic math. Increasing your lead by 100% right before you have to go into the second leg just feels absolutely massive.
I mean, I was going to ask you about that. Going from 1 to 2 for this rivalry specifically, if we're talking like Barcelona, Wolfsburg, obviously it's like, okay, Barcelona, go back home, think they're going to be able to make it up. But this has been a slugfest. These two teams kind of battling it out. Like, I mean, I think the consensus is Chelsea's better, but on the pitch, we've seen that this is definitely like a back and forth, and it really just kind of depending on the day. Going from 1 to 2, well, how did you feel when the second one goes in?
Buddy, it was loud. Our pal, well, it wasn't too loud, but our pal P mentions that everybody was great and they could have gotten him fired. The second goal could have had me wake up the other people in my house, but I managed to keep it together because I had to watch it after work over here in America, a busy day. So I'm watching it, and like by the time the match is almost ending, it's like 11 p.m. Out here in Seattle. And when she knocks that home, I mean, I stood up off the couch. It was a big fist pump, and I was just like, that might do it. I think. Yeah. I mean, they got to go to the bridge though, man. And Chelsea is going to throw everything they have. And P mentions in the chat, what if they put Sam Kerr out there in the second leg of the Champions League? Wouldn't that be something? Is it something I want to see as a City fan? Not so much. Is it something I want to see as a football fan? You're damn right it is.
Yeah, I mean, definitely want to see it. I mean, if I'm Chelsea, I mean, I love Kat Macario, and I know that she's been a great for him, but I feel like I've got to get LJ closer to the center of the pitch and give her more of the ball and give her more options, because she also had a shot that looked like it was fast forwarded. It just looked like I was like on 1.5x on my screen. I was just like, oh my God, that player's able to do that. Friend of the show, Leanne Sanderson's talked about LJ kind of being the key to, Europe at the Euros. I don't think it's much different for this Chelsea side. Sam Kerr could make a huge difference. Maybe she does, maybe she doesn't. Myra Ramirez, I mean, a wonderful player, in her own right. Yeah. I think she's kind of captain of the, the defense to stop Ramirez is like, hope they miss, because like if she wants to get to a spot and get around you or get through you or go, whatever she wants to do, like too often she just puts you on her hip and then she's just doing what she wants to do. And then it's just hope she miss kind of defense. I think Bandit's probably in that club as well. So it's not like Kerr would be coming in and replacing, an unproven 19 or 20-year-old. Like, I mean, I don't think Ramirez was necessarily the problem. But I don't know. We covered a ton of ground. So, all right, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. And I know you're a man of great take integrity. So I'm not trying to, hit you with some gotcha journalism. But do you think, in your heart of hearts, does City advance to the semis?
Yeah, I do.
Let's go.
And not just the take integrity. I think I've seen enough now over the 180 minutes of these two matches. Do you want the prediction? Are we doing predictions, or is that for the next preview show? Is there a preview show? Live producing on the live show.
Maybe. I don't know. Let us know in the chat. What are we talking about next Wednesday here? We can knock out a little preview. There's just not going to be much football. Actually, probably not. NWSL's back. It's going to be a big NWSL weekend. We might preview that, but we'll definitely be back early next week with a recap there. I think we just kind of sit out and see what happens, but we're not going to close the door on no preview for leg 2. We might be back.
Okay.
Make sure you're subscribed. Hit that little bell button. Do what you need to do.
Nicely done. This man's is a marketing professional I do this podcast with.
All right. I appreciate that, bro. All right. Let's move forward. So one prediction down. You came super close. So props to you. I want to drop one more here real quick. Let me get this thing loaded up. And let's rewind back to, what you thought might happen with Wolfsburg-Barcelona.
I'm also going to predict 5 goals. I'll say 4-1 Barcelona. I think Wolfsburg gets one at home, but I don't think the result's ever in doubt.
Unbelievable.
Golly, who's that guy?
Cooking. The Yui Hasegawa of Champions League predictions. Let's go.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. And real quick, shout out to P in the comments. He's in California and a teacher, watching in their desk drawer, trying to control the emotions for all 4 games. Respect to you, pal. So I work for, in case you haven't seen some of the other shows, I work for a labor union, and I help represent classified staff. So like groundskeepers, custodians, food service. Just shout to everybody who works in education. Like, we got your back. We're fighting for our lives out here. Much respect to everybody who works in those roles. To the football, Barcelona is just immense. Like, that lineup they put out. I know. I think I texted you that morning that they announced that lineup obviously an hour before the match. And the question I had to pose to you, because we love to compare these things to the NBA, was that Barcelona's death lineup in the spirit of the Golden State Warriors? Because that was an unbelievable 11 to put on the field.
I alluded to it a little bit early when I saw Arsenal's lineup, which was not their death lineup. Like, it was very much okay, all right, let's see what this 11's got. Even down to the goalkeeper, Van Dam-Solar, I think, was nursing an injury. We get Zinsberger there. So just a ton of change with Arsenal. But I had to, even in those early moments, I talked myself into, okay, well, it's actually 180 minutes of football that we're talking about here. It's like, all right, well, we're 90 here, 90 there. It's not really a match. So that was like the rationalization that I was doing. And I'm like, all right, Slager's got it, and Slager's we trust for sure. And then I see Barcelona's lineup, and I'm like, they clearly are not doing the 180-minute thing. They're like, we want to slam the door shut on this team immediately. Badiuelo, Eva Payor, CGH, a midfield, Alexia, Battery, Aitana, 3 of the 6 or 7 best players in the world, maybe. And then the back line, Esme Brooks, Mapi, Irene Paredes, welcome back, Yana Fernandez, and then Katakoi. Like, I don't even know. There's no relief in that lineup whatsoever. You look at the subs too, off the charts. I was actually surprised, my 5-goal prediction didn't hit, but congrats to you for definitely nailing it.
There is a chunky part in the middle of the match in my notes, like after the half, when, Barcelona's Death Star starts to show that it's fully operational, that I was just like, oh, did Dino pick enough goals for this 5-0 prediction? I was like, because I thought your prediction was, I thought 5-0 was absolutely going to hit if they didn't accidentally score a touchdown. Bon Mati looked tell me if I'm talking crazy here. I know like we've talked about Bon Mati's athleticism on top of her just like
Mm,
blinding skill, and
yes.
we've talked about her strength. She looked crazy fast in this
Yes.
match too. Like she had a couple times like racing down the right wing. That's kind of what helped um, create that first goal. But it just looked like Bon Mati had like a little extra juice in her legs that night.
Dude, I'm so glad you mentioned this because watching her in this match, I'm like, did I just never notice this? Like that she's this fast and she's this, and I'm like checking her age. I'm like, yeah, no, she's like in her mid 20s, and I was like, this. She looked so fast and so
Yeah,
quick, especially on the opening goal that I thought was a Payor goal, but I think it ended up being scored as an own goal.
yeah,
CGH hits her with a pass, and like Aitana starts like if she's kind of like fading towards like the sideline, and then plants her foot, the in cut to like dart through the center of the park and then loop back outside, like to just roll right around. I think it was Minga that she was running with.
yeah.
And then CGH bends the pass the other way. The geometry on all of that was fucking bananas. Like it just broke my brain. Just seeing all the different angles that are happening in real time. Perfect ball from CGH. Perfect ball in from Aitana. Like the bend on that ball just kind of like pulls Aitana out, gives her the angle to bring it into Payor, and then it ends up being an own goal to kind of open up the scoring. But that was pretty much perfect football. Like, like that to me was like peak football in the sense of it's not a spectacular goal from like 35 yards out, or it's not, a flying save. It's like, it's just so easy and so simple that you're just like, wow, why can't they do that all the time? Like they make it look so easy, and it's just like it's the hardest thing to do in the sport. And I was just in awe just from that moment. I'm just like, wow, these players are so good and they're able to do that in this spot on the road. There was talk too about like we've talked about like that environment from the beginning of this year's Champions League. It's going to be fun to watch Wolfsburg. It's going to be fun to see big teams go there in big spots and see like what the vibe's going to be like and how they're going to respond. And Barcelona slowish start, but once they got rolling, I mean, like they were marvelous.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, they just have a mix of like we talk about the death lineup. It's just a mix of unbelievable athleticism, unbelievable skill, unbelievable football intelligence, and it's just all wrapped into one giant package. And speaking of the death lineup, Kike, first of all, thank you for educating me on trying to pronounce the name. I got too focused on the LC at the end. Kike points out that obviously. Onabatie and Claudia Pina are out right now. But if Kike was making the death lineup, it would be Batier instead of Yana Fernandez and
Mm-hmm.
Pina instead of Salma Berriuelo, just based on current form. I think that's a real look at the potential death lineup. I think that makes sense. But I mean, we're operating out there with four Ballon d'Ors, and would
And
it be
counting.
crazy to? Yeah, I was just gonna say, and counting. Would it be crazy to think that CGH doesn't get one in the next 2 or 3 years? Selma Pariuelo is 21 years old. Eva Payor is 28, so she's getting a little up there. But would it be nuts if Payor got a Ballon d'Or in the next 2 years? If it's one of the ones that maybe CGH doesn't grab, I mean, because Payor is a goal scoring machine out there. Even though she could be she's got a little bit of Erling Haaland in her game sometimes, where it's like there's some baffling decisions. She made one where she decided to pass when it looked like she was one on one with the keeper, and I put on my
Yeah.
notes like it was is Payor like doesn't want to embarrass her old team. Like I wasn't exactly sure what it was. It just seemed like she kind of got in her own head there. But you know, once they started to pile it on in the second half, it was over, and the quarterfinal is essentially over. And no disrespect to Wolfsburg, it's just you're running up against a juggernaut.
Yeah. Yeah. It's unreal. You look at some of the stats. Barca outshoots Wolfsburg 27-4. Shots on target 8-2. Accurate passes. Wolfsburg 173. Barcelona 626. Just insane.
Yeah.
A couple more here. Passes inside the final third, 230-16. Touches inside the opponent's box, 53-5. Shots inside the box, 16-2. Barcelona was dominant. You look at Wolfsburg's big guns: Alex Pop, Lineth Bjornstein, Ulla Brand, Rebecca Blomqvist. Those four big, attacking players combined for 0 shots. Zero from those four. You were talking about a Bjornstein game, and they didn't get any shots from anybody. Really, really rough day for Wolfsburg in this one. They did get the goal, and kind of a nice moment. So I think, let me check my notes here. Lena Latvine, she earns a corner in like the 80-something minute. And shout out to the Wolfsburg audience that was in the building, because they kind of like definitely warmed up and were like, okay, let's go. I like it. We earned a corner. Well, I like it. Let's some come in. The very next play or associated with that sequence, I think after the corner, that's when Yanina Minga gets the goal. So they were on it. They know their team. That was a cool moment to see. We talked about the vibes and kind of connecting the dots there. And then once it went 3-1, I was like, here we go. Your prediction's super live. So I was happy for you. But ultimately, Wolfsburg unable to do it for Stroot.
Yeah, I mean, shout out to Svenja Huth, the veteran, the captain, who I thought, maintained her form and played a good match. Ulla Brand had some good moments, had some other kind of questionable moments. It's hard to put together a great, entire stretch of football. They took Brand off right around the hour mark, but I thought, I thought she gave what she could. It's just, there's just too much. And, that stat about those four not having a shot, like Alex Pop, it's hard to survive if you're Wolfsburg if Pop and Bierenstein combine for 0 shots, let alone the other two players. So, I mean, it's just going to be impossible. Like we talk about it, there's no margin for error when you play Barcelona, even at home, even with the crowd behind you, even when you're trying to do it for Stroot.
One knock on our guy Stroot, who it wasn't done for on this day. Why on earth, the corner kicks that Barcelona just kept taking short. So Mapi's taking the corner kick. CGH is standing next to her. I mean, you would think when Mapi and CGH are near the corner there with pretty much every angle at their disposal, because they're both geniuses that can do anything that they want, why you would have one defender there is just beyond me. Because those two will murder your one defender no matter who it is. I mean, it's just that defender's at just such a supreme disadvantage. And what they ended up doing for the last chunk of the first half and most of the second half was like, oh, okay, you're going to give us a 2-on-1. We're just going to walk this ball in. And that's basically how they cashed in more goals when Mapi, gets the ball into Paredes. And it just paid huge dividends for that. And I was surprised to see Wolfsburg not make an adjustment. I think they made an adjustment like around the 78th minute. We're like, okay, we're going to put 2 here. We're not just going to let you walk it in. It's just like the corner is dangerous as is. And, they were just giving them another 10 or 15 yards and a better angle to just make a more different, a more dangerous ball in. So they sorted it out, but that I think was a big miss from that Wolfsburg coaching staff. Not sure it would have made a difference in the grand scheme of things, but
sure.
I was like, I was just watching that. I'm just like, oh my God, like they're just going to let them do it again here.
Right. And yeah, the free kick situation was interesting too, where they would put Mappy and CGH out there, and then it just kept CGH just kept running over the ball, and Mappy would hit the deliveries. And I was just waiting for whatever the other shoe to drop was going to be. If it was going to be CGH runs over, and then Mappy just hits a short pass to CGH, or like what else? How many variations Barcelona is going to have out of it? Let me shout out real quick. We got some legends checking in. P3 Maja checking in. Good to see you, pal. Casey says hello from Berkeley. Been into our channel, or into the channel, if you will. Look at that. Since Susie Rance was on the episode a few weeks ago. Susie Rance, the legend, one of the great journalists in the NWSL. Appreciate you for rocking with us, Casey. I just think, I mean, P3 Maja, of course, comes in with the immediate banger of a stat. Barcelona had more touches in the opposition box than Wolfsburg had in the opposition half. What are you going to do with that? There's nothing you could do.
Wild. Yeah. No, it's brutal. And I think I want to hit one more stat before you get out of here. Irene Irene Paredes. Fun to see her back in the mix. Check out these passing stats. Short passes, 29 for 29. Medium passes, 40 for 40.
Sure.
Long passes, 6 for 7. She missed one pass on the day, and it was a long pass. What is that? 69, 75 out of 76.
Unbelievable.
Right?
Come on,
it's
man.
like, what the fuck are you supposed to do? When Wolfsburg's not a bullshit team. Like,
no.
And they just have these advantages at different spots on the pitch where it's just like, okay, this corner is closed. Like this, it's like walking through like an abandoned shopping mall and like it's like 90% of the stores are closed. You're just looking for like, I don't know, like a Auntie Anne's, like you're looking for something that might be still open.
Is there anything that can help us here? Yeah, that is a fair question to ask. I mean, the pass off the short corner to Madrid-Lyon, that pass to Paredes for the goal, it was a heat-seeking missile right onto Paredes' right foot, and Borbe just has legitimately no chance in the world at saving that from that range at that speed. That was so perfectly executed that there's not a single goalkeeper alive who would on purpose save that. Maybe if they tripped and fell accidentally into the path of the ball, but you have no shot at stopping that.
Yeah, as soon as it hits Paredes' foot, it's like that's a goal. Like if it touches the foot, it's gonna go. It's going in, and they're cashing. Sama Pariuelo, she gets on the board too. I thought she played great. I think we've seen her kind of struggle in some of these big matches, especially when they get real close knit, kind of more technical. But I thought today she was awesome. Dangerous positions all day. Was really, really happy to see Sama get a goal. So that was definitely exciting. And yeah, I think this one's a wrap. I don't think anybody's picking Wolfsburg to kind of go to Barcelona and turn this into something more competitive. So we'll just kind of go ahead and sharpie in. Or I think I'm with you on City. I think City does get through here. I think Bon Pastor, we could have something. But the first season, she's gonna have to solve a bunch of problems. It's not a lot of time to be able to do that. So I think I'm with you on City getting through. I'll assume that you're with me on Barcelona getting through past Wolfsburg here into the semis. Let's head to the third matchup, though. Bayern Munich 0, Lyon 2. And stop me if you've heard this one. Got another prediction. Shout out to my guy. Give me a second. Let me get this thing loaded up.
Let me get my prediction out of the way. I think it's a 2-0 victory. We haven't even I want to give the credit. Lyon's defense is just suffocating right now. Come on.
I don't know, man.
It's a goddamn soothsayer. What are you doing here?
A seer of seers here. I want to get in your head, like like some CBS drama. How are you able to piece all this together?
When you know ball. No, what do we do? I don't know, man. We're just fucking making guesses out here. Like me and you, we're just out here. We watch ball. I like to think we know ball. We've got some good cosigns from some other knowers of ball. I think Lyon. I don't hate to say it, but it just looks like it feels like we're on a collision course for another Barcelona-Lyon final. And I think it could be even better than last year's. I think you and I have slightly differing opinions on how close last year's final was. But I think Lyon can give them a real run, man. That defense is super, super duper legit.
Super legit. Totally agree with that. I think the main difference for me with Lyon last year to this year, I think was a little bit not really transitional, but Ada Hegerberg is still kind of around. Like Sommer's getting a lot of minutes, and no Chewinga there, and Diani is on the right, having come from PSG a season or two prior to that. Now it feels like things are solidified. You've got Heaps, you've got Dumornay, you've got Diani on one side, you got Chewinga on the other. like, I want to say they're kind of like pretty locked in with what they've got, offensively. Defensively, they just keep getting better. Like, you sort of look at a player like Selma Basha and you're like, okay, this is a little smaller player. You already know what she's good at. You close your eyes, all right, Basha ball. You already know what time is with that. And then you see her defend, and be like, no, I can get up to the level of our killers back here, of like a Renard or a Gilles or a Carpenter on the other side. And it's just like, oh my God, like she's going to defend like this. And all she wants to do is win the ball and, put a dime 45 yards upfield onto somebody, Heaps or Chewinga or whoever, to get things rolling. They are exciting because I think there's some real, there's some real like structure to their team and their lineup now. Even like Marajan and Damaris, as like kind of like defensive-ish type midfielders, but players that you're happy to see up the field with the ball, doing stuff involved in offense if they're linked up with the right other couple players in attack. So I think they've really cracked the code of that lineup, and they just look so difficult to score on. I mean, I think Bayern had chances. Bayern gets 12 shots, only one on target, and you have to credit that Lyon defense for just making it difficult, putting them in, getting them a little bit off their spot, and not allowing them to, have it come as easy as it comes, against a weaker competition.
Yeah, man. I mean, you just can't get comfortable with them back there. And I mean, I do wonder the impact of Chewinga, Dumornay. I guess I don't really wonder the impact of Chewinga, Dumornay, and Diani. You can't cheat forward if you're anybody on the opposition, like even Bayern Munich. Like you just have to protect yourselves in every way because the Chewinga running forward is horrifying. And the way Marajan was passing in that match, that led to Chewinga's opener. I thought Marajan was great. She ended up having, according to our pals at FootMob, the lowest rating, the lowest game rating, which I'm a little surprised by because I thought Marajan hit some awesome passes. I thought she played a little better than Damaris, to be honest. And it's not like Damaris didn't play well, but so you make a great point. You've talked about this before. The attack is set. Like Lyon knows who they are. They know what they're going to do. Everybody has to respect Dumornay's great skill, her ability to put you on her hip and kind of just do what she wants. Diani, maybe one of the most skilled players on the team, at worst, the third most skilled player on the team in terms of like dribbling and shooting, shaking players, getting away from defenders. And so you just have no respite there. And then you have Carpenter, Gilles, Renard, and Basha. And it's just like, how can I even pay attention to trying to get past those defenders when I'm worried about all this stuff up front? And oh, by the way, those defenders are all super strong.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think when you have those type of defensive chops, even Heaps in the midfield, like more in the 10 spot, is going to rough things up defensively, or if she's involved in a duel, she's going to make you feel her. They defend as a team, which is awesome, and then with those attacking players, they're able to capitalize on anything. Linda Sembrant, she makes the mistake in the first half, where it's a 50-50 ball, but Chewinga's running really fast the other way, and you're trying to kind of like at least hold the ball or, get it upfield a little bit. The ball bounces in a way that is very harmful to Bayern Munich. It ends up in Chewinga, like in just almost in stride. She's able to take it and just kind of go with it. Then at that point, there's no catching her. And that strike that she put on it for that first goal, like that slicing, I mean, talk about no chance. I mean, there was nothing that Gross was going to be able to do with that. I mean, just slicing away and just looked like it was ready to burn a hole through the net. That was unbelievable. And then Lyon's second goal, Renard puts a ball, 50 yards? 50 yards in the air to Dumornay. And then Dumornay wins a duel against two taller players, and then is able to kind of like head the ball onto Heaps. Heaps, I think 2 or 3 touches gives Dumornay a chance to kind of build up another head of steam, lays it off right into her path, and then that's a wrap from there. Dumornay, slams the door shut on Bayern Munich to get that second goal. I mean, I picked Bayern Munich, to win. I thought they were pretty live, and I didn't think they played poorly.
No.
But they clearly were maybe a class and a half below a team like Lyon.
I think that's probably fair. I mean, they're in that second tier, I would say. So, whether it's like you're thinking about, like Bayern, I think Wolfsburg's in that tier. I think you can make I think some people would make the argument that City and Arsenal are probably in that tier. It's just you're not.
Wish we were in that tier.
We'll discuss that later. It's just hard to get in the Chelsea, Barcelona, and this is not in order, obviously, but the Barcelona, Lyon, Chelsea, Orlando Pride tier. It's just hard to get in there. And like, where's Washington Spirit in that tier? They might be in that second tier, but they're absolutely knocking on the door. Where's Kansas City Current? Are they knocking on that door to get into that tier? So it's just hard to get there. So I don't think it's an insult to Bayern Munich. And like you said, they don't have to play poorly to lose 2-0 at home to Lyon. That's just that speaks more to what Lyon is than what Bayern is.
Yeah, I mean, I think this one came down to the shots ultimately. I mentioned Bayern just one shot on target from 12. The other side, though, Lyon manages 20 shots, 10 on target. So when you're giving Lyon 10 shots on target and you're only forcing Endler into one save, that's not a formula that's going to work. Home or away, doesn't matter. It's fair to say that this tie probably a wrap too. Does Bayern have any chance coming back here? Obviously, I mentioned Linda Sembrant. They clearly missed Glodis Perlevigas-Dotier, who would have been in that spot. That's like their sort of defensive stalwart, who wasn't in this match. Right. I'm not sure if that's enough to kind of make up the ground there, but I don't know. Does Bayern have any chance of surviving here?
I don't think so, man. I mean, going to France for the second leg, I'm glad you mentioned like just the shot disparity. Endler doesn't have to do much. I'm going to do some of this from memory. I just have I have it in my notes to nod to it. And I didn't spell it all out. So I'm going to do some of this from memory. And I'm going to apologize for some relatively violent imagery here. But this is what I thought about right around the hour mark. And this is when Lindsay Heaps dished to Chewinga, who missed it wide. But it just felt like Lyon was loading the super weapon. And, like most people, when watching women's football, I thought about a line from the great Jamaica Queens-based poet Curtis Jackson, also known as 50 Cent, who in the song Heat is describing a gun battle. And he says, when the window rolls down and that AK comes out, you can squeeze your little handgun until it runs out. You can run for your backup, but those machine gun shells are going to tear your back up. Now, the reason I was thinking of that is just Lyon can just hit you with several rounds per second, and they just come at you and at you and at you. And Barcelona does the same thing. And it is as if you are operating with a handgun and they are operating with a fully automatic machine gun. And again, apologies for the violent imagery there, but it's just you're just operating at a lesser level than them. And it's almost impossible to keep up when they're firing on all cylinders like that.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, so many other players can play offense and also defend. Makes it really, really difficult. And then they get those goals in ways it's just like, how are you supposed to what's the game plan for Rennie Renard just kicking a ball 50 yards through the Munich air on Thursday night, right on the spot. I can imagine some GPS coordinates that she was calculating in her mind just to get it right to Dumornay to get that goal. But yeah, I agree with you. I think Lyon gets through. Shout out to Shinta in the chat who says Lyon versus Barca. Final winner takes on Orlando, please. Sign me up for that. Let's fucking go.
Absolutely right, Shinta. Great call. See, we got people producing our show. We got people producing world football. I mean, Shinta couldn't be more right. Like, look, whoever wins the Champions League, they should be in pretty good form. I realize they'll kind of be at the end of the season, but Orlando Pride will be in the throes of their season. If you're going to try to mix the two footballing calendars, that would be the best time to do it.
I love it. Yeah, let's do that. Well, we'll see. We'll see who the second best team is. I'd be excited for something like that.
No doubt.
Let's fast forward. One more match on the docket. Let's see. Go through my notes here. Okay. Oh, I found it. Arsenal 0. Real Madrid 2. Let's go. Big win for my Blancas. My Blancas get a big win versus my Gooners. Let's go.
Congratulations.
We're on quite the tear with our predictions. So, I don't know. What do you say we keep it going, buddy? I'm going to go Arsenal 3-1. I think they kind of like big girl this Real Madrid side. Oh, buddy.
So, we're going to have those. Credit to us for, we don't just play the good predictions. And, Lord knows we get a lot of shots up on this podcast. Not all of them are on target.
No, not on target. Yeah, that wasn't the only thing that wasn't on target. Arsenal, 13 shots, just 1 on target. Stina Blackstenius responsible for that one. No player on Arsenal's attack. No player on Arsenal's team notched more than 2 shots. That makes it tough. And I want to rewind back to something we talked about last week. I was obviously exuberant, saying, okay, well, we're going to score and this, the snowball's going to happen. And Arsenal's the kind of team that like feeds off the momentum and, Ford scores and then Russo, now gets a shot in the arm and Mariona comes in and now things get cooking. And buddy, the complete opposite happened. I think, things went bad. The weather was bad. The snow was, or the field was muddy. It was nasty. And I think Arsenal mentally kind of retreated a little bit, from just kind of like a head in the game kind of standpoint. I don't think they wanted any part of that Madrid side, how physical Madrid was playing, the field conditions, kind of like the nastiness. I mean, I thought Arsenal would come in and be like, hey, we're the better team. We've got more skill, more talent. And that wasn't what this game was about at all. It was a physical matchup, and I think the elements definitely played a factor. And Arsenal kind of like, outside of a 20-minute stretch in the second half, where they really want to scratch and claw and maybe try to level the match, there just was not much, from Arsenal from an offensive or a defensive standpoint.
You're totally right. The physicality really jumped out and I did not expect it. And I don't think it's just a WSL versus Liga F thing. I just, and we've talked about, you think about some of the players that Real Madrid has, like Olga, diminutive in physical stature, plays way bigger than she is, plays way tougher than she is. I know people, I have some disagreements with some folks on, is she more of a passer? Is she more of an attacking player? And that element of her game is great, but she plays with incredible spirit, incredible heart. Caicedo, even with her speed in the attack, she has a strength to her game. I think Senia Brun plays a physical style. Pipa Angeldal plays with some physicality. And they kind of enforced their will on Arsenal here.
Yep.
I just want to ask the question because we've talked a lot about Mariona for Arsenal, and I thought she was probably the best player for Arsenal in this match, at least in my view. She continues to deliver in big games. That's who she is. It seems to be what she does. When Linda Caicedo is just taking on all comers, and she is just going to do battle with Emily Fox and not flinch and not give an inch. Do you think it's true that Arsenal is pound for pound a better team than Real Madrid?
That's a good question. I'm going to say probably. Damn.
I asked the question because I just think it's way close. It's super close. We might be splitting hairs with these two.
It's definitely close. But I think based on what we saw, Caicedo feasted on Emily Fox. And and back when you think about the preview, I was worried about the other three. I was talking about Fox. I was talking about Catley, and I was talking about McCabe. I was like, all right, Fox, McCabe. They kind of mosey around. Catley, has been half a step slow here and there. Maybe a couple too many times this season for my liking. In this one, Leah Williamson was in scramble mode. And I think on the one goal, and shout out to you. You talked about, maybe Caicedo. I think I forgot the specific. Apologies, I didn't pull this clip. But you talked about Caicedo kind of breaking away and squirting through or doing something, which is exactly what happened. Leah Williamson misplays a ball, and Caicedo breaks through, and Fox is sort of around. She's sort of in the vicinity. She's not in great position to kind of be a backstop, and had no chance. By that point, Caicedo had been working Fox. It was just, it wasn't even a battle. It was like we're going to go to this mismatch, for Madrid. Yeah. And that was like, oh my God, I hated seeing that. That was really brutal. And then Williamson gives it up, and then Caicedo just shrugs off Fox. It's like, okay, well, you're in the frame, you'll be in the highlight, but you're not going to get anywhere near what's going on here. And just the coolest, calmest finish that you can imagine. And yeah, Caicedo, even at her young age, is a player that we cannot stop. And when you think about, we talked about Lyon, Damaris, Marjan, and even Heaps, if she's kind of like dropping a little deep. Even this Madrid side, okay, at the center back spot, they got Mendes, they got Lacroix, but then their midfield, Toletti is kind of involved. Senior Brun, she's dropping a little bit deeper. Leopold, who you mentioned, is a real player with real Champions League experience and kind of like can mix it up with the best of them for sure.
Yeah.
We don't have that. In our defensive midfield, we had our back four, and then it's Kim Little and it's Kyra Krunic-Ross, who are not going to necessarily strike a lot of fear in a player like Linda Caicedo or Caroline Weir or an Atenea. Like it's sort of a bad matchup. And I think if Arsenal on the offensive side isn't going to put any real pressure on you, then it's over. Like this Madrid team should advance.
I've been thinking more and more about this, and so our pals Kike and P3 Maja, mentioned this in the chat here. Kike says, there's nothing truly objective making Arsenal favorites. There's simply a tendency to overrate English clubs, especially over Spanish clubs. P3 chimes in, exactly, might be due to their results against Barcelona. Speaking of Real Madrid and why some folks might underrate them. I gotta say, and our OG friend of the show, MLS Architect, who's usually kicking it in our YouTube comments, dropping knowledge with us, the absolute legend, has mentioned this too. And I gotta say, for Spanish football fans, there's got to be some level of frustration, and this is very apparent on the men's side of football, where English pundits talk about English football in the Premier League and talk about how it's the most competitive league in the world and it's the best league in the world. And if you're a fan of a Spanish football team, especially Barcelona or Real Madrid, you're just kind of looking around going, why do we have all the European trophies then? Isn't that weird? Like, you guys are so great. Your league's so competitive. And then when our teams line up and play, seems like we're the ones always lifting the trophy. How does that exactly work out? And I got to say, there has to be something to that. And MLS brought that up to us, talking about it in the context of saying the NWSL in America is the most competitive women's football league in the world. Now, do I think that, Orlando Pride or Washington Spirit would just go out and get rolled by Barcelona? Absolutely not. I just don't think the talent disparity is real in any way there. I don't know if I want to go that far, but I just don't see Pride getting rolled by anybody. But back to the point that I just think with that team, we didn't even see Alba Redondo for Las Blancas in this one. There was another player that I was thinking about. We didn't even see Yasmin, and Yasmin has looked great for Real, immediately stepping in. So I think there might be something too, and we had talked about that, especially in those two Copa de la Reina matches where Real just gets absolutely cracked by Barcelona. Maybe it's time to not hold that against them so much, even as disappointing as those results are. We got to remember this team still is absolutely loaded.
Yeah, I think I don't disagree with any of that. I don't necessarily think it's a. I don't think it's a WS. To be honest, I don't think it's a WSL versus Liga F versus Arkema, or I don't think it's really about that. Look, I mean, this is another reason I hate XG. Arsenal wins the XG battle 1.1 to 0.7.
Is that what we watched?
So they were, honestly, to some extent, they were getting into positions where you would expect them to be able to create more goals and more offense, but just again, the one shot on target really sunk them. But I think we haven't really seen this Madrid lineup necessarily. I think versus Deportivo, like their last draw at center back, I think they were playing Antonia and I can't remember who else, but it definitely wasn't Lacroix. And I think in the midfield, it was really, sort of a hodgepodge as well. So I think we definitely got Madrid's best lineup here. They did what they were supposed to do, to, take full advantage of that first win at home and really come out and just be like, the thing that we've been lamenting for months on this show, stop falling behind. You're really fucking good. You have really good players. We know you can come back against a lot of these Liga F teams or during Champions League qualifying or what have you. Stop falling behind, play from the jump. And that's what they did. Like, they weren't going to give up any cheapies to Arsenal. They played tough. And when the opportunities kind of presented themselves, they pounced both times. I think we talked, maybe it might have been pre-show, but that 20-minute stretch in the second half where Arsenal's really, really trying to level this match. I think it was like from the 60th minute to roughly the 80th minute. They're giving everything they can. Bunch of shots, bunch of possession, pushing the ball deeper and deeper, as best they can. And then as soon as that run is over and they kind of collectively exhale, take a breath as a team, we're just like a simple 1 pass, 2 pass, 3 passes. We're upfield to Atenea, one move, like just the Arsenal defense on that play looks like just 4 statuettes made of Jello. Like they just didn't. There was no positive movement in any sort of direction where they were going to pose any kind of threat. Like zero resistance whatsoever. The easiest Champions League knockout stage goal that Atenea I think is going to score in her career for sure. On that one, they definitely deserve the win. And I think we'll see what the reverse pivot has in store.
Yeah, I think a great shout on Atenea, and I think this qualifies as an Atenea brace. Here's what I have in my notes. Atenea comes on for Caicedo in the 74th minute. Next note, Atenea comes in and immediately fouls Emily Fox because of course she does. That's the 75th minute. And then in the 84th, Atenea gets the ball on the counter and is able to score. So I think coming into the match, immediately hard fouling an opponent and then scoring a goal, I think if I may, I would like to start calling that the Atenea brace.
I like it. Little combo. I like the combo. Last quick thing here. I think, the Arsenal lineup, I had talked about it too in the preview. I'm like, damn, I think we landed on something here, with Russo at the 9, Frida Maanum, Caldente in the left, maybe Chloe Kelly on the right. And then in this match, we get Stina Blackstenius at the 9, Russo at the 10, Mariona on the left, Beth Mead on the right.
Right.
So a big shake up from that. And I feel like I might be done with Alessia Russo at the 10. I'm not sure I like it. I think it feels like something that Arsenal's trying to talk themselves into just so that Blackstenius can be on the field at the 9. But I don't really like the fit. Russo, I think, is I don't know, to my eye test, my very basic, my very basic eye test, I think is a better 9 than a 10. I'd rather have her up there. Her work rate's crazy. She's going to create chances. She's going to create chances out of nothing. Let's give her the opportunity to do that rather than try to be in that spot and distribute. I kind of feel like Mariona might be better there. Like, just with her IQ and, her ball skill, you just can't take the ball off her. But either way, that that front four did not work at all. Beth Mead had a look, but you could see that Beth Mead's chemistry, obviously a tremendous player, but her chemistry was off. Like, she's just not used to playing with those players in that spot, and they weren't able to link up with anything at all, really, that was any kind of threatening. So I think there's definitely, I don't know, Slager's going to have to go back to the drawing board in a really big way, I think.
Yeah, probably. I think you raise a good point. I do wonder if Blackstenius was able to finish that early chance where Russo played her in. Like, do we feel better about Russo at the 10? Cause I mean, it felt like there were a couple of things that loomed really large. Caicedo's speed, despite the elements, felt like that was a huge factor. Blackstenius not scoring that early chance when Russo plays her right in, that just felt huge. Beth Mead not getting the shot on frame right near the end of the first half, where they could have been able to kind of pull that one back. I think that felt really big, even in the moment. And then, Atenea obviously gets the second goal. I almost wonder if let's say Beth Mead scores right before the end of the first half, was the second goal in that match, no matter who scored it, going to end up being kind of the de facto winner, so to speak. So all those things combined, I think your point stands though. Frida Monum is really good at the 10, and she has good chemistry with Russo at the 9. So I think I would go back to that. And I'm just going to raise my hand again and just ask, is Rosa Kafaji going to play for your team?
Yeah. Yeah. It's tough. I mean, we saw her, ball last year in the Champions League. I can't really wrap my head around why this player cannot be even just dependent on as a regular sub to get 25, 30, 35 minutes consistently, because it can't be that this system is so complex. Like, the system's not really doing anything. Let's get a player in here that is unpredictable. And I think, on the other side of, you think about Madrid, I keep thinking about Caroline Weir, who's like a great player who gets the ball, upfield for that second Atenea goal. Kafaji could be doing stuff like that, winning balls deep, driving the ball, upfield, or just distributing from deep and like connecting, long, medium range passes. And at the very least, it's a change of pace. I think Kyra Kroening-Kross in this one struggled. I think she was, playing a little bit, laid back, a little lax. Like, she had a couple balls picked off that were, they probably get through when you're playing like Leicester or, Everton or, whoever in the WSL on or some weird. Yeah, I mean, but in this match wasn't going to happen. I think Kroening-Kross was not on point this day, even though I think she's a good player with a good future. But I don't understand why a player like that can get minutes, Kafaji can't get minutes, when we've already seen Kafaji excel in this tournament against teams like Chelsea, against teams like Real Madrid. She fucking bossed Real Madrid last year at the group stage. So I don't know. That's something that we've got to look at. Either way, this lineup, I would be happy not to see this lineup again.
Yeah, and I don't think you will, because they got one more crack at it, and they got to do something big in London. So it's gonna be nervous Nelly hours for anybody who is only an Arsenal fan. But luckily, some people are Arsenal and Real Madrid fans, so they can also be happy if the result plays out the same way next time.
Yep, win some, lose some, as they say. All right, man. Quick look ahead. TBD on what shows we're going to be doing or not doing. We'll see. But I know,
fair enough.
We will be back talking about NWSL going down this weekend. Some big matchups. Friday night, Portland play Angel City. That'll be fun to kick off the weekend. The Courage play your Seattle Reign. Washington Spirit, led by Yona Hidaldes, take on the KC Current, led by their own, monster manager Vlatko Andonovski on his second year revenge tour. We'll see what happens there. My future team, Bay FC, racing Louisville. That'll be fun. Our Utah Royals, San Diego Wave. See what's happening there Saturday night. Gotham FC versus Orlando. And to close out the weekend, Chicago Stars, Houston Dash. I'll clock in and catch some Dash. I'll be excited for that Sunday night. And then next week, Champions League returns. Lyon hosts Bayern to open up the proceedings, 1:45 p.m. Eastern, 10:45 a.m. Pacific, Wednesday, March 26th. Following that one, Arsenal hosts Real Madrid, a 4 p.m. slot. And then the following day, Thursday, March 27th, the champs. Barcelona hosts Wolfsburg, 1:45 p.m. Eastern, 10:45 a.m. Pacific. And then to close out the quarterfinals, Chelsea host your Manchester City Sky Blues, 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. You must be pumped for that one.
It's going to be exciting. I mean, round 3, fight, in the words of Mortal Kombat. I'm ready to see it.
Let's go. All right, man. Anything else you want to hit before we get out of here?
We got to hit it. I mean, obviously, P3 Maja just mentions in the chat, I don't think we really talked much about Sydney Schertenleib when we talked about Barcelona.
Yep.
And just here quickly from my notes, when she comes onto the pitch, dude, bro, what the fuck? My guy. Like, what are we talking about here? That strike, her movement, her size, her speed, her decisiveness. She's a teenager, man.
Yeah.
Like, what are we looking at here?
Yeah, well, when you were talking about the Ballon d'Ors, I'm like, I don't know, she might be.
She might win. Yeah,
certainly might be on
4
the short
years,
list.
5 years. Yeah,
unbelievable. I mean, she made Minga. Minga gets the goal for Wolfsburg, but Minga was probably involved in a couple of the goals the other way. She had Minga going in circles. Completely gives away the ball, overruns it, then she's turning around the other way. Schertenleib just got her on as if she's attached to a yo-yo. Just completely dominant. The strike, unbelievable. She almost got a second goal. I mean, a tremendous player right now. Again, not a player that all right, 5 years from now, we'll circle back. This is a tremendous player right now. I think she's giving Barcelona real options from a substitution standpoint. And then the last thing I want to hit. So Schertenleib comes in for the legend, Alexia Putellas. And after the Schertenleib goal, you get the standard, Putellas taking off the armband, stone faced, or walking over. I think she gives it to Patri. Very unhappy. She wants to let us know she's not unhappy. She's coming out of the game. And then Schertenleib scores. The camera cuts to the Barcelona bench, and you see Alexia just what the, she's just got a smile on her face,
yo,
if she's gonna do that. I mean, you let me know when my shift's up, and I'll just sit down and watch. What Sydney's got up her sleeve. That was a cool moment.
Unbelievable. Yeah, there's a great photo too of them kind of high fiving each other as Schertenleib's coming off the field. Boy, nice. Does that look prophetic?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting, man. I mean, Vicky Lopez, I thought she came on and played really well, and she was still somehow a distant second on best teenager who came into a Champions League match. I mean, I guess wait and see with Schertenleib. I mean, how high is the ceiling? I don't want to get too crazy, but she had the 2 assists against Tenerife. We've seen her play even this season as she started to come on. Me and you were just that's an awfully good player right away, huh? And then just that explosion on that strike. Oh boy, the rich get richer.
Mm-hmm. Yep. No, I'm becoming excited to see her kind of grow into her own for sure. I'm going to make a little side prediction here. That won't be the last goal that we see from Sydney Schertenleib in this tournament. So put me down for that.
I think that's fair. I put in my notes, I was surprised, even though I know she hasn't played much, she's still a very young player. I was still somehow a little surprised that was her first Champions League goal. I was oh, she didn't get in the 9-0 drubbing versus Hammarby or anything. I don't even think she was really getting many minutes then. Somebody will correct me if I'm wrong there. But even then, Barcelona's so stacked that I was just oh, okay, yeah, I guess that is her first Champions League goal. Interesting. So, you just never know where the goals are coming from there.
Yeah, definitely won't be the last. All right, man. This has been another episode of Into the Channel. Thank you. to everyone for hanging out with us live. We really, really appreciate it. If you enjoyed the show or love women's football as much as your boys do, make sure you're kicking it with us every single week, maybe multiple times a week. Well, we still got some stuff to work out, but suffice it to say, it'll be more than one time per week, especially now when the calendar is getting definitely hot and heavy. Like if you liked, subscribe, follow YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you'd like to watch or listen. Leave us a review over your favorite podcast app. We want to hear from you. We love hearing from you. Links to all of our socials, except one, in the show notes of this episode. And a big thank you to my co-host as well, Mr. Grant Angle, for being our rising star, our Champions League semifinalist. I think we're all pulling, we're all a little sky blue this week, kind of hoping that your squad is able to make it through. At least one of our squads will make it through, so we're excited about that. But either way, I appreciate you, bro.
Likewise, buddy. I mean, look, you can't lose here. So one of your squads is getting through. Hopefully my squad gets through. We appreciate everybody for hanging out with us. Casey, Kike, P3, Patrick, Chuck checking in for repping Sheffield United. Go Blades. Let's go. Thank you guys for rocking with us. We will talk to you, when the next show is. We're trying to figure that out. We'll probably take a couple minutes after the show and figure that out. But thank you again for watching, and we will see you all next time.